More people are joining, so just wait a few moments. Did anyone get the opportunity to join the Rath Yatra festival today? Online?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think Manish was there as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Very nice. And did anyone see the Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri today?
Yes, we did. It's amazing. He came out at last.
Yeah. After like days of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Jagannath's unstoppable.
Yeah.
Jai Jagannath.
Jai Jagannath.
So only 3 devotees on video today. Hopefully we see a few more.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
A couple of minutes for a few more to join. Seems like a busy evening.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to find where we are. Does anyone remember? Anyone able to help me? What did we read up to last week?
Chapter 3. On hearing the prayers of Devaki, the Lord replied, "My dear mother, in the millennium of," I think it's about the 7th paragraph from the bottom of chapter 3.
Yeah, that's I think where we are. On hearing the prayers of Devaki. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Nice to see you. So please volunteer yourselves for reading in consecutive order through the group chat. And just judging from the last few weeks, we generally get through like maybe 3 or 4 readers. So if we can have 4, that'd be great. And every week, as I do, I read a principle of good sadhu sangha from the Improving Sadhu Sangha website. And these principles, they're 16 principles, they're centered around how to study Prabhupada's books in groups such as this one. So previous weeks we discussed hearing, discussing, reading regularly, reading systematically. This week I'll just read from the 5th principle. So I particularly like this one. I've been to many Sangha groups, and this is something I really, really want to try and encourage in this particular group. I think this is a really outstanding principle of good sadhu sangha. So we can try and practice this even starting today. So this principle of good sadhu sangha is to repeat in our own words the meaning of the sentence we read. So we're going through this Krishna book paragraph by paragraph. It would be really wonderful if when we're reading and we're taking that knowledge in, that spiritual wisdom, we're taking it in, we also are able to speak it, but not just from the words on the page, but in our own thoughts, in the way that we can express it ourselves. In this way, the message, it goes deeper in our own hearts. So that's what we'll find. So to repeat in our own words the meanings of the sentences we read. Okay, that's the 5th principle. Okay, so I think we'll begin now, as we always do from the introduction. There's a short invocation prayer which I'd like to sing. Welcome to join in on mute. so it doesn't cause feedback. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. So as we said, we're reading from the paragraph beginning. On hearing the praise of Devaki, the Lord replied. Okay, so just as a quick recap, does anyone remember, just in summary, what led us to this point in the story? What was covered in the last few paragraphs? Who has just finished speaking? What's the situation on this chapter? Anyone could share? Exactly 7 days ago, we're reading about. So who's just finished speaking? The clue's in the first sentence anyway.
Devaki.
Devaki, that's right, yeah. And what has Devaki been saying? Not in detail, but just in summary. She's been She's been giving prayers, hasn't she? She's been speaking prayers to Lord Krishna, who has just appeared before her as her son. So this is the birth of Lord Krishna, this chapter. And after hearing the prayers of Devaki and then, Vasudeva and then Devaki, now Krishna is about to speak. And so, Jai Prakash Prabhu, if you like begin. Thank you.
On hearing the praise of Devaki, the Lord replied, "My dear mother, in the millennium of Swayambhuva Manu, my father Vasudeva was living as one of the Prajapatis. His name at that time was Sutapa, and you were his wife named Krishna. At that time, when Lord Brahma was desiring to increase the population, he requested you to generate offspring. You controlled your senses and performed severe austerities. By practicing the breathing exercises of yoga system, both you and your husband could tolerate all the influence of the material laws, the rainy season, the onslaught of the wind, the scorching heat of the sunshine. You also executed all religious principles. In this way, you were able to cleanse your heart and control the influence of the material laws. In executing your austerity, you used to eat only the leaves of the tree which fell to the ground. Then, with a steady mind and controlled sex drive, you worshipped me, desiring some wonderful benediction from me. Both of you practiced severe austerities for 12,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. During that time, your mind was always absorbed in me when you were executing devotional service and always thinking of me within your heart. I was very much pleased with you. O sinless mother, your heart is therefore always pure. At that time, also I appeared before you in this form just to fulfill your desire. And I asked you to ask whatever you desired. At that time, you wished to have me born as your son, although you saw me personally. Instead of asking for your complete liberation from material bondage under the influence of my energy, you asked me to become your son.
Okay. So, Vishnu is speaking here, in 4-on-4, about why he was born as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Okay. And what was that reason? because they're amazed that Krishna has just appeared here as their son. So what had they done to achieve Krishna as their son?
So for 12,000 years, they performed austerity. I mean, eating only leaves and just thinking only of the Lord, and not and just serving Him. And so the Lord blessed them.
Yeah, that's right. So they performed extreme austerities, isn't it? Huh? Eating only leaves which fell on the ground and such. And so when the Lord appeared to them, as he says, in the same form as you see me now, what did they ask him for? Because of course people like to get blessings from the Lord when they see the Lord. So what people generally ask for liberation or freedom from distress, isn't it? What did they ask from the Lord?
They asked to have Vishnu as as their son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. So they performed, 12,000 years, is it, of the celestial time of austerities to have the Lord as their son. Huh? Okay, we'll continue reading.
Okay. In other words, to appear in the material world, the Lord selected his mother and father, namely Prishni and Sutapa, respectively. Whenever the Lord comes as a human being, he must have a mother and a father. So he selected Prishni and Sutapa to be his mother and father perpetually. And on account of this, neither Prishni nor Sutapa could ask the Lord for liberation. Liberation is not so important as the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Lord could have awarded Prishni and Sutapa immediate liberation, but preferred to keep them within the material world for his different appearances, as well as will be explained in the following verses. On receiving the benediction from the Lord to become his father and mother, Sutapa and Prishni retired from the activities of austerity and lived as husband and wife in order to beget a child who was the Supreme Lord himself.
So was anything that stood out from this section for you? Those who have just joined, we've just read the paragraph beginning, in other words, to appear in the material world. So was anything that stood out for you? Sashi? Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna. I'm just a bit confused. Are we still talking about Krishna here? And why these parents are Krishna and Subhadra?
So
Whose parents are they?
there's a form of Vishnu there, and he's explaining how he's become the son of Devaki and Vasudev. And he's explaining that in his previous life, in the previous life of Devaki and Vasudev, they were known as Sutapa and Prishni, respectively. And so that's why, because of the austerities they did in the previous life, Vishnu is going to be their son, life after life after life in this material world. They didn't want to get liberated from the material world, as many of us do, but they wanted to just serve. They just wanted to serve the Lord life after life in this world by becoming his parents. So this is like an extraordinary level of selfless devotional service, isn't it? It's completely, purely selfless, isn't it? There's nothing in it for them, you see. They just simply want to please Krishna. And so from one life to the next, they're performing all this austerity, even just being in this prison for and giving birth to so many children who were killed is like an extreme austerity. But you can see that their willingness to do that life after life because of the joy they get from this devotional service, from selflessly serving Krishna. Huh? So it's not something...
Sorry, so I just wanted to clarify. So have we gone back to a previous life to the one that we have been reading about, or is this an after one? I've got confused as to where we are now completely, for some reason.
Would anyone like to answer that?
This is a life before Devaki, isn't it?
Yes.
Right, okay.
I
Thank
can
you.
try. Sorry.
Yeah, the previous life. They were known as Sutapa and Prishni. Yeah.
Thank you.
Has anyone else who got questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I had a question, but I can see it got answered in the next paragraph coming. So.
Okay. All right, Prabhu, would you like to read ahead?
In due course of time, Prishni became pregnant and gave birth to the child. The Lord spoke to Devaki and Vasudev. At that time, my name was Prishni Garbha. In the next millennium, you took birth as Aditi and Kasyap, and I became your child of the name Upendra. At that time, my form was just like a dwarf, and for that reason, I was known as Vamandeva. I gave you the benediction that I would take birth as your son 3 times. The first time I was known as Prishni Garbha, born of Prishni and Sutapa. In the next birth, I was Upendra, born of Aditi and Kashyapa. And now for the 3rd time, I was born as Krishna from you, Devaki and Vasudev. I've appeared in this Vishnu form just to convince you that I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, again taken birth. I could have appeared just like an orderly child, but in that way you would not have believed that the Supreme Personality of Godhead had taken birth in your womb. My dear father and mother, you have therefore raised me many times as your child with great affection and love. And I am therefore very much pleased and obliged to you, and I assure you that this time you will go back home, back to Godhead, on account of your perfection in your mission. I know you are very concerned about me and afraid of Kamsa. Therefore, I order you to take me immediately to Gokula and exchange me for the daughter who has just been born to Yashoda. Having spoken thus to his father and mother, the Lord turned himself into an ordinary child in their presence and remained silent.
So here Krishna is giving further information about other births as well. So not only as Prishni and Sutapa, but then also Aditi and Kashyap, who had the son named Vamandev. And then of course Devaki and Vasudev, who have got Krishna now as their son. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I believe it's in chapter 4, that many births both you and I have had, O Arjun. I can remember them all, but you cannot. Because Arjuna asked Krishna, how did he speak the Bhagavad Gita before to the sun god? Isn't it? And so Krishna explains in that way, I can remember when I spoke it to the sun god from my previous lives. Because Krishna is a spiritual form, he has a spiritual mind, spiritual body. It's completely spiritual. So he never forgets anything. Whereas the devotees, even the pure devotees we can see in this situation, they don't remember the previous lives. So Krishna comes and reminds them that you've been my parents in the past. Or he reminds Arjuna, you've been my friend eternally, life after life. Prabhu, please continue.
Okay. Being ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva prepared to take his son from the delivery room, and exactly at that time a daughter was born to Nanda and Yashoda. She was Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Lord. By the influence of this internal potency, Yogamaya, all the residents of Kamsa's palace, especially the doorkeepers, were overwhelmed with deep sleep, and all the palace doors opened, although they were barred and shackled with iron chains. The night was very dark, but as soon as Vasudeva took Krishna on his lap and went out, he could see everything just as in sunlight.
Okay. So Krishna's sister, she's very powerful. She's a very powerful lady. Huh? She's also known as Yogamaya or as Subhadra. Yeah. And what is her power? What can she do? Is explained here. Do you want to see that?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
I have a doubt actually. They are talking about in the previous paragraph Prishni Garbha, but we haven't heard about the pastimes of Krishna as Prishni Garbha. Who is he?
So Prishni Garbha, Garbha means from the womb of Prishni Garbha. So he is actually a Vishnu form. He has a four arms form, like Narayan. So there's not much description given about him. He's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam as well, but there's not much mention about his pastimes. I believe in one place, he is the same, I remember reading, he's the same form of Vishnu who appeared to Dhruva, you know, when Dhruva was performing austerity in the forest to see God, then Vishnu came to him, isn't it? Yeah. So that was the same form. He was born of Prishni and Sutapa, and then he came to visit Dhruva in the forest.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank
In
you.
Vrindavan, actually, he came to Vrindavan because that's where, in Madhuvan, where Dhruva was performing the austerities. Yeah. And of course, the next incarnation is mentioned as well. So, who is familiar with Upendra, or who is known as Vamanadev? Does anyone know that pastime of the Lord as Vamanadev?
Prabhu, he is the-
How does it look? Anyone know?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Vamandev was born, I think, with Aditi, and then he came to because Bali Maharaj was ruling all over the world and the whole universe, and he took off all Indras and every part of the universe, and he was ruling over it. So then I think it was Indra's. I'm not sure. I'm a bit confused, but at time the mom prayed that Krishna come and help the devatas. So he came as Vamandev, and he went to see Bali Maharaj, and Bali Maharaj was slightly proud. He was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, and because he was ruling the whole universe, Krishna came in a Brahman Swarup and went to Vamandev and said, with a begging pot and a stick, Vamandev came to Bali Maharaj, and Bali Maharaj said, "You can ask for any benediction because I'm ruling the whole universe. What would you like, and I can fulfill your desire." So Vamandev goes, "I only want 3 steps." So Bali Maharaj obviously is saying, I can give you more than 3 steps. Why would you just like 3 steps? So Vaman there said that, I am a Brahmin and that is enough for me. So I'm only asking for 3 steps. At that time, Bali Maharaj's guru, he is warning that, this is a form of Vishnu. Do not give him this benediction. So but Bali Maharaj at that point is not listening to his guru, and he's giving the three footsteps of he's giving that he's giving 3 foots to Vamandev. So with the first foot he's conquering the whole universe, and the second one as well, and then the third foot he's saying, I still got a 3rd step. Where shall I put the 3rd step? I'm cutting it short. So Bali Maharaj is saying, you can put that on my head, and he's totally surrendered to Vishnu, and Krishna was really pleased with him, and he puts the 3rd foot on Bali's head. So he's given 3 steps of charity. This is how he takes the whole universe away from Bali Maharaj. But Bali Maharaj is totally surrendered to Krishna, so in return Krishna is giving him a whole universe where he's staying at the doorstep, guarding one of the universes. He's benedicted to Bali Maharaj.
Yeah, he gives Bali Maharaj a planet, his own planet.
Yeah.
And he becomes the gatekeeper. He becomes the servant of Bali Maharaj as his gatekeeper. So yeah, very nicely narrated, isn't it? Huh? Thank you. Yeah, so Vamandev is the dwarf incarnation of Krishna, and one of the Das avatar.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I just ask something? It's Panchali, sorry.
Yes, please.
So I mean, you can correct me because I'm not so sure, but I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere, but I'm not very sure. I might have forgotten that Bali Maharaj's sister was Ratnamala, who, when she saw Vamandev, she was fascinated with the beautiful, you know, how beautiful the child is, and wanted to embrace the child right away. As his mother, but then she got very angry with the child when obviously he killed his brother, and so then she wanted to destroy the child. But because Krishna, being, I mean, so merciful, remembers this, so in her next life she was born as a demon Putana, where she was allowed to feed baby Krishna as his mother, but also be this, and also, you know, have in her minds that or came to baby Krishna with the thought that I want to destroy. So before, when she saw baby Krishna, she knew he was the the Lord, but she still wanted to destroy her. So her feelings from her previous life was carried on to this life, but because she served Krishna as his mother, Krishna still liberated him. But I'm not so sure if I remember correctly. So
Yeah, that's right. She had a previous life connection. Putin had a previous life connection with Krishna as well in the pastime of Bali Maharaj. So yeah, well remembered. Yeah, actually, he didn't kill Bali Maharaj, but because he tied up Bali Maharaj, then she became a little bit envious. So Krishna says, "Yeyata mam prapadyante tam stateva bhajamyaham." In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that as you approach me, I will reciprocate. So she had the mood of a mother, but she had a slightly inimical mood. So therefore, she was like a nurse for Krishna, a wet nurse. But then she also had this demonic side as well. But then, of course, Krishna, he only takes the good aspect. It doesn't matter how you approach him. He only takes, even if it's mostly bad that she was trying to poison him, just the fact that she tried to give him some milk, he just accepted that aspect and he liberated her. This is the most wonderful thing about Krishna's mercy.
thank you.
Thank you for bringing that pastime up. Okay, Prabhu, would you like to continue, please?
Yeah. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that Krishna is just like sunlight, and that wherever there is Krishna, the illusionary energy, which is compared to darkness, cannot remain. When Vasudeva was carrying Krishna, the darkness of the night disappeared. All the prison doors automatically opened. At the same time, there was thunder in the sky and severe rainfall. While Vasudeva was carrying his son Krishna, the falling rain, Lord Sesha, in the shape of a serpent, spread his hood over the head of Vasudeva so that he would not be hampered by the rainfall. Vasudeva came onto the bank of Yamuna and saw the water of the Yamuna was roaring with waves, and the whole span was full of foam. Still, in that furious feature, the river gave passage to Vasudeva to cross, just as the great Indian Ocean gave part to Lord Ram when he was bridging over the Gulf. In this way, Vasudeva crossed the river Yamuna. On the other side, he went to the place of Nanda Maharaj, situated in Gokula, where he saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. He took the opportunity to silently enter the house of Yashoda, and without difficulty exchanged his son for the baby girl newly born there. Then, after entering the house, very silently and exchanging the boy for the girl, he returned to the prison of Kamsan and silently put the girl on the lap of Devaki. He again clamped the shackles on himself so that Kamsa would not recognize that so many things had happened. Mother Yashoda understood that a child had been born to her, but because She was very tired from the labor of the childbirth. She fell fast asleep. When she woke, she could not remember whether she had given birth to a male or a female child. This ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 3rd chapter of Krishna, the birth of Lord Krishna. Evolve.
Very well. So a very dramatic entrance of Lord Krishna, huh? Yeah. So we can see from here that there's so many personalities who are involved in this particular pastime, and there's of course Devaki and Vasudeva, Krishna's parents. There is the Yogamaya, Anantashesh, the river Yamuna. Then there's a little explanation about Mother Yashoda as well, and Nanda Maharaj. Yeah, all these different personalities are involved. So this is all being like orchestrated. We were just going to discuss from the previous paragraph. All being orchestrated by Yogamaya. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Haribol. Oh, she wants to join in.
Yeah, definitely.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, before we move on to the next chapter, I have another quick question.
Okay.
The Durga Ma we worship. So is she in the form of I mean she's the same, but is she in the form of Yogamaya or Mahamaya?
That's a good question. Yeah. Does anyone know the answer to this question about Durga Devi? Is she in the form of Yogamaya or Mahamaya?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Durga Devi was Mahamaya generally, but when she, I think it's Subhadra, when she's involved in Krishna's pastimes, she's Yogamaya. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good answer. Yeah. So it's hinted on a little bit here, because in the first sentence of this paragraph, Srila Prabhupada says that wherever there is Krishna, then the illusory energy cannot stand. So Krishna and Durga Devi are never seen together, because Krishna, his whole environment is spiritual nature, and the material nature doesn't touch the spiritual nature. It's two separate energies. But essentially, they come from the same source. And the example is given sometimes of electricity. Yeah. So electricity, you can use it for your fridge freezer to make cold. Yeah. Or your AC to make cold energy. Or you can use it for your microwave or your oven to make hot, to increase heat. Yeah. So the same energy, electricity, can be used in different ways. But where there's heat, there can't be cold, and when there's cold, there can't be heat. Whereas Prabhupada says here, wherever there is sunlight, there cannot be darkness. Huh? So the same energy, but it's been used in different ways. So Subhadra is the original personality of Krishna's Maya, both the Yoga Maya and the Mahamaya. Is that okay? That was from Panchali, that question. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, absolutely fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I please ask a question?
Please.
What is the difference between Yogamaya and Mahamaya? Sorry, I don't know, Prabhu.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. Could you repeat?
What is the difference between Yogamaya and Mahamaya?
So Mahamaya is the material energy, and Yogamaya is the spiritual energy. Yeah. And so, because yoga means in connection with Krishna. Yoga, we generally say bhakti yoga, so it's devotional service in connection with Krishna. whereas Mahamaya is disconnected from Krishna's service. So all the souls, they have to be somewhere. They have to be under the power of some energy. The soul can either be under the power of the material energy or under the power of the spiritual energy. And so Subhadra, she blesses us whichever way we wish to be, however we wish to be under the shelter, whichever shelter we wish to be under. So she embodies that energy. So that's is that okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can move on to now chapter 4.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, so
Yes.
I've heard that there was a two-handed form Krishna born to Yashoda, and also Subhadra was born as well. And in the prison cell, Krishna was born, the four-handed. He was that part where he's there to destroy the demons, whereas the Krishna born in Vrindavan at that time was there to carry out his leelas. Does this book mention it later in the chapters, anything about it? Because I'm surprised it's not mentioned here, but I have heard of that from another devotee.
Yeah, it's a good observation, actually. So that's not mentioned, that's not the version which is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the standard version which is in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we're reading from. So that's a different format. Although different devotees can have different realizations of Krishna's appearance, this is the authoritative standard. Sorry, okay?
Yeah, it's okay. It's just that I've also heard this on another Hare Krishna website. Then again, I don't know if it's like ISKCON Hare Krishna or the other Hare Krishnas. I've forgotten their name. Yeah.
Yeah, there are different commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is also an acharya in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line in which the Hare Krishna movement comes.
Okay.
He has that particular commentary. So it's not exactly wrong, but because Krishna is unlimited, his appearance can be seen from different perspectives and understood in that way. Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just like sometimes when because Krishna comes in time and time again, yada yada yadharmasya. So it's not that exactly every time that Krishna appears in the material world, his pastime is exactly the same. Sometimes there are changes in the pastime. Sometimes he performs them in slightly different ways. So it's not that he kind of has to rigidly follows the pastime, but he can perform the same pastime with a slightly different flavor. So that's why they have different acharyas. They have different darshans or different visions of the pastimes, which are also correct.
Okay.
Is that okay?
All right. Yeah, it's okay. It's just I was told regarding Narasimhadev, his appearance day doesn't happen in Purushottam month, and some say he did come up in Purushottam month, and then I was told, well, Narad Muni could have sent this message, and he was probably talking about another dimension, another era, another cycle, and the information has come down. Is this what it could be? That this other acharya has got information of Krishna from another dimension, but not this one.
So I haven't heard that myself personally. As far as I've heard, Lord Narasimhadev, he always appears in the Vaishak month. Yeah.
Okay.
He always appears on the Chaturdasi in the Vaishak month, because there are aspects of the pastimes which are always the same. So it's said that the the parents of the Lord is always mentioned in the script, the mission of the Lord, and the markings on his lotus feet and his lotus hands. So there are certain things which help to identify who is a bona fide incarnation of the Lord. Yeah. Of course, there are different pastimes of Lord Nrsimhadev as well, and I can maybe post some of those stories in the group, on the WhatsApp group later. There's a pastime of Nrsimhadev who comes, instead of coming out of a pillar, he comes flying in on Garuda into the house of Hiranyakashipu in one pastime. There's another pastime. So yeah, there's multiple pastimes like that, and that describes.
So that pastime you mentioned about the Garuda, that doesn't come in the Srimad Bhagavad
No.
that Prabhupada gave? Okay.
No. But there are other Puranas which give more description. So
Okay.
the Padma Purana is described differently. Sometimes in the Nrsimha Purana is described another way, Brahmanda Purana. So, but of course, it's also understood that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amala Purana, or the purest of the Puranas. So that's considered the standard or the highest version of the truth.
Okay, but then if the other Acharya who's come from a authorized lineage, they've got the Srimad Bhagavat as well, but their leelas are slightly different, then doesn't that contradict or something?
So it's not so much when we come to understanding the pastimes of the Lord, the essential thing is when we're hearing from the Acharyas is we're in their particular relationship with the Lord, rather than just them presenting facts and truths. So it's not necessary for them to just say, here's the fact, but they're presenting things in a way which they have the taste. They, someone may prefer Krishna in one particular aspect of his personality. He is such a diverse, supreme personality of Godhead. So his activities are so diverse. And each Acharya, of course, every bona fide Acharya has an intimate a deep connection with Krishna. And they relish that relationship with Krishna very much. And therefore their presentation is in that way. But following in the line of Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of the whole International Society for Krishna Consciousness, then we follow in his mood, his way, because we haven't developed that deep relationship with Krishna. But it's understood by following our Acharya, then we can develop our own mood.
Okay.
Otherwise, it can come across as being like different facts and different pieces of information that we put together. So.
Okay, thanks, brother.
All right. So perhaps we can move on to the next chapter now. How are we doing for time? We can, yeah. If you want to continue reading, please, Prabhu.
Chapter 4. Kamsa begins his persecutions. After Vasudev adjusted things as they had been before, he carried Krishna to Gokula, and all the doors and gates became similarly closed. The gatekeepers awoke and heard the newborn child crying. Kamsa was waiting to hear the news of the child's birth, and the gatekeepers immediately approached him and informed him that the child was born. At that time, Kamsa got up from his bed very quickly and exclaimed, "Now the cruel death of my life is born." Kamsa became perplexed now that his death was approaching, and his hair scattered. Immediately he proceeded towards the place where the child was born. Devaki, on seeing her brother approaching, praying in a very meek attitude to Kamsa, "My dear brother, please do not kill this female child. I promise you that this child will be the wife of your son. Therefore, don't kill her. You are not to be killed by any female child. The omen was that you will be killed by a male child. So please do not kill her. My dear brother, you have killed so many of my children who were just born, shining like the sun. This is not your fault. You have been advised by demigods, demonic friends to kill my children. But now I beg you to excuse the girl. Please let her live as my daughter."
Yeah, so they're talking about Subhadra here, or Yogamaya, because Yogamaya was born of Yashoda and swapped with Krishna. So Krishna was left with Yashoda, and Yogamaya was brought back from Yashoda to the prison house. And so, so then Devaki's begging that Kamsa doesn't harm her, isn't it? He's saying that it wasn't a female child that you were going to be killed by in the prediction which came from the sky. Maybe Linika, would you like to read now?
Okay.
Thanks.
Kamsa was so cruel that he did not listen to the pitiful prayers of his sister Devaki. He forcibly grabbed the newborn child to rebuke his sister and attempted to dash her on a stone mercilessly. This is a graphic example of a cruel demon who could sacrifice all relationships for the sake of personal gratification. But the child immediately slipped out of his hands, went up into the sky, and appeared with 8 arms as the younger sister of Vishnu. She was decorated with nice garments and flower garlands and ornaments. In her 8 hands she held a bow, lance, arrows, sword, conch shell, disc, club, and shield. Seeing the appearance of the child, he was actually the goddess Durga. All the demigods from different planets, like Siddhaloka, Charanaloka, Gandharvaloka, Apsaraloka, Kinaraloka, and Uragaloka, presented her with various articles and began to offer their respective prayers. From above the goddess addressed Kamsa, "You rascal, how can you kill me? The children who will kill you, the child who will kill you is already born before me, somewhere within this world. Don't be so cruel to your poor sister." After this appearance, Goddess Durga became known by various names in various parts of the world.
So this is how Durga became very famous. This is how Yogamaya. She was there as a baby, but then when Kamsa attacked her, she transformed into this this 8-armed goddess Durga form. Yeah, and all of the demigods from different planets, they came and showered flowers on her while she was chastising King Kamsa. Okay, you can continue, please.
After hearing these words, Kamsa became very much overwhelmed with fear. Out of pity, he immediately released Vasudeva and Devaki from the bondage of their shackles and very politely began to address them. He said, "My dear sister and brother-in-law, I have acted just like a demon in killing my own nephews, your children, and thereby I have given up all consideration of our intimate relationship. I do not know what will be the result of these envious acts of mine. Probably I shall be sent to hell, where killers of Brahmanas go. I am surprised, however, that the celestial prophecy has not come true. It is not only in human society that false propaganda is found. Now it appears that even the celestial denizens speak lies. Because I believe in the words of the celestial denizens, I have committed so many sins by killing the children of my sister. My dear Vasudeva and Devaki, you are both very great souls. I have no instructions to give you, but still, I request that you not be sorry for the death of your children. Every one of us is under the control of superior power, and that superior power does not allow us to remain together. We are bound to be separated from our friends and relatives in due course of time, but we must know for certain that even after the disappearance of the different material bodies, the soul remains intact eternally. For example, there are many pots made of earthly clay, and they are prepared and also broken. But in spite of this, the earth remains as it is perpetually. Similarly, the bodies of the soul under different conditions are made and also destroyed, but the spirit soul remains eternally. So there is nothing to lament over. Everyone should understand that this material body is different from the spirit soul, And so long as one does not come to that understanding, it is fair to accept the processes of transmigration from one body to another.
Okay, thank you for reading so well. So here now Kamsa begins speaking again. So he realizes that this goddess Durga has appeared before him, right? So previously, when he killed the previous 6 children, he would just throw them on the floor, right, and he would just mercilessly kill them. But now, as he's attempted to kill this girl, she's turned into a dazzling goddess, you know, with 8 arms, with weapons, and and then he's like been rebuked by her, and then she disappears, and then he becomes to speak, as it says. He was overwhelmed with fear, isn't it? Right? So, but what he says is very interesting. What Kamsa says is like, he speaks quite philosophically, isn't it? Yeah. But you can see, even though he's speaking philosophy, which is very correct, the attitude that he has is incorrect, right? So, you know, even though we think of Kamsa as, you know, the big demon, it's not that he was like a stupid person. He was like foolish. He didn't know anything. He knew Vedic philosophy very well, but it was actually his sentiment that was misplaced. He was self-centered. He was a self-centered person, and so when he speaks, he can speak very intelligently to cover his own back, so to speak, right? To secure his own position and to justify his actions, right? So this isn't actually the purpose of understanding a lot of the philosophy of the Vedas, of Krishna consciousness. So what points is he bringing out here? Could anyone pick up on that? On those? Would anyone like to share?
I think he's bringing out the points as the soul is eternal. A soul cannot die, like in Gita, it's been said that the soul cannot be cut or it cannot be smashed. It cannot die. Soul is eternal. So it's the body. So she's. I think he's trying to give the philosophy to his sister that, you know, all these children he killed, it was Krishna's wish that, you know, it happened, and basically the soul is eternal. I think that's my understanding.
Yeah, so he's saying at the end there that so he actually believes in the soul. He's like, you know, he's not like a gross materialistic person in the common sense, but he understands that there's a soul, and the soul moves from body to body, and that there's, because of different karmas we have to enact. So, but he's using that example from his own point of view, isn't he? To say that, you know, well, what I've done is just, you know, well, the soul's going to move on. Well, you know, it's just karma, right? That was kind of one of his arguments here.
I basically think he's got as in Gita it says, like, you see, you can have knowledge and you can have realized knowledge. So he's got a knowledge, but it seems like it's not realized knowledge. So he understands that these things is happening, but he's not kind of acting according to that knowledge, because otherwise he wouldn't have killed all these Devki's children, because he had the knowledge that everybody has to die one day, and no matter what, your death is going to come anyway. So if your death is going to come, if it is written that this is the way you're going to die, but he's just got the knowledge, but he's not realized knowledge, so he's not applying that knowledge to his life. That is my understanding.
Yeah. So if I was to say that in yeah, that's true, very true. If I was to say the same thing in a different way, I might say that he has wisdom, or he has knowledge, but he doesn't have responsibility. He doesn't take responsibility for that. So sometimes it's said, with great power comes great responsibility, isn't it? Or with great wisdom or knowledge comes great responsibility. So even though he has all this knowledge, he doesn't take responsibility for his actions. Who does he blame? It's mentioned here at the middle of the paragraph. He doesn't think, I'm responsible for my mischievous actions, for my sinful actions. But who does he blame?
He blames the celestial denizens, like the celestial prophecy. He said, humans in human society, you can find false propaganda, but it appears they're doing it too. So I only did it because they said it, but it turned out to be untrue. So I'm not really to blame here.
Yeah. So not only does he believe in the soul, but he also believes in the higher planets and the different devas and devis. And he's like, well, they told me it was going to happen. So I just did what was right because the soul's going to die anyway. Right? So he just blames it on the voice he heard in the sky. Yeah. But actually, he's like in complete illusion. Even though he has all this knowledge, he's in complete illusion. Because Durga Devi just told him just now that the child who's going to kill you has already been born somewhere else. So, so he's kind of in that ignorance. He didn't even listen. That Durga Devi came in this magnificent 8-armed form and gave him a message, and just didn't register. He was just thinking about himself, how he's going to protect himself. So this is really what's meant by a demoniac nature, a demoniac spirit, someone who has this tendency, not that someone is ignorant about spirituality, or that someone is ignorant about the different devas and things, but it's this kind of selfishness, having all that knowledge and understanding and still being selfish. That's what the demoniac spirit is driven by: false ego, selfishness. Okay.
Hare Krishna,
Is Lenny
Prabhu.
still with us? Yeah.
Is that like denial? Because like he knew that he knows all about this internal soul and demigods and everything, and yet he heard Durga. But what we've just heard there, what he said, it's like, did you just not realize that scene just happened? So is he like in denial, or he's in his own world? What is that?
You can say it's denial. It's denial of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's inimical or envious of that there's someone who is supreme. So he thinks of himself as the all in all. So in the Bhagavad Gita, and there's a chapter 16, I think it is, the divine and demoniac nature. And there it's explained that the one who's in the demoniac nature, he thinks himself or herself the supreme, the center of the universe. I'm born and everything in this world is for my enjoyment and for my exploitation. And the demigods, they can grant me all kind of benedictions so that I can enjoy in this world. And anyone who comes in my way, I'll crush them. That's the kind of demonic spirit.
Okay, thank you.
Is that more clear? So it's the false ego, the false identity that I'm God, I'm the enjoyer, everything's for me, I'm the controller. So it's that kind of illusion. Okay, so Linisha, would you like to continue, please?
Okay, Prabhu. My dear sister Devaki, you are so gentle and kind. Please excuse me. Don't be aggrieved by the death of your children, which I have caused. Actually, this was not done by me, because all these are predestined activities. One has to act according to the predestined plan, even unwillingly. People misunderstand that with the end of the body, the self dies, or they think that one can kill another living entity. All these misconceptions oblige one to accept the conditions of material existence. In other words, as long as one is not firmly convinced of the eternality of the soul, one is subjected to the tribulation of being killer and killed. My dear sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, kindly excuse me. Kindly excuse the atrocities I have committed against you. I am very poor-hearted, and you are so great-hearted. So take compassion upon me and excuse me. Welcome.
Yeah, so he's giving first, isn't he? Again, he's not taking that responsibility on his own actions. He's just saying everything happens by destiny. So there's always these, there's often discussions about whether things happen because of destiny or free will. Yeah. And so here he's blaming destiny, that it was just meant to happen. It was meant to be. It was not. I had no choice in the matter. So is that true? That we have no choice? We can do any evil thing we like, and it's just well, it was meant to be. Or is there like complete free will that I can do anything and everything and be completely irresponsible for my actions? Because that was his first argument. Yeah, I can do what I like and I don't have to be responsible. So actually, neither of these is true. As the Bhagavad Gita explains, we are the architect of our destiny. As you sow, so shall you reap. It says in the Bible, even that whatever you do will come back to you. Yeah. So that's just the natural laws of nature. Yeah. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, isn't it? There's different ways of expressing this. Okay.
Very bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah. Also, you can say, or we can say, misusing the free will.
Yeah, that's a very nice point. Yeah, misusing free will. So we have free will, but then there's also the correct use of free will and incorrect use of free will, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you can have a really nice car, and you can look after it and follow the laws of the road, the rules of the road. Or you can have that nice car and you can just be a complete maniac with it. But you're taking a big risk if you don't follow the rules of the road. You have the free will to do what you want. There's the same thing with life. We've got this body, this human body, which is like a vehicle, which if we can follow the laws of God, we can go back to the spiritual world. We can use this vehicle to take us back to the spiritual world. Or we can use it to take us somewhere else in the illusory world, the material world. Okay. You want to continue now, please?
While Kamsa was speaking to his brother-in-law and sister, tears flowed from his eyes, and he fell down at their feet. Believing the words of Durga Devi, whom he had tried to kill, Kamsa immediately released his brother-in-law and sister, and he personally unlocked the iron shackles and very sympathetically showed his friendship for his family members. When Devaki saw her brother so repentant, she also became pacified and forgot all his activities against her children. Vasudeva also, forgetting all past incidents, spoke smilingly with his brother-in-law. Vasudeva told Kamsa, "My dear fortunate brother-in-law, what you are saying about the material body and the soul is correct. Every living entity is born ignorant, misunderstanding his material body to be his self. This conception of life is due to ignorance, and on the basis of this ignorance, we create enmity or friendship, lamentation, jubilation, fearfulness, envy, greed, illusion, and madness are different features of our material concept of life. A person influenced like this engages in enmity only due to the material body. Being engaged in such activities, we forget our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva took the opportunity of Kamsa's benevolence and informed him that his atheistic activities were also due to this misconception of life, namely taking the material body to be the self. When Vasudeva talked with Kamsa in such an illuminating way, Kamsa became very much pleased, and his guilt for killing his nephews subsided. With the permission of his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, he returned to his home with a relieved mind.
Okay, so is there any thoughts or reflections on this couple of paragraphs? Any questions? Or we could continue. Okay, carry on.
But the next day, Kamsa called all his counselors together and narrated to them all the incidents that had happened the night before. All the counselors of Kamsa were demons and eternal enemies of the demigods, so they became depressed upon hearing their master speak of the night's events. And although they were not very much experienced or learned, they began to give instructions to Kamsa as follows. Dear sir, let us now make arrangements to kill all children who are born within the last 10 days in all towns, countries, villages, and pasturing grounds. Let us execute this plan indiscriminately. We think that the demigods cannot do anything against us if we perform these atrocities. They are always afraid of fighting with us, and even if they do wish to check our activities, they will not dare to do so. Because of your immeasurable strength, they fear your bow. Indeed, we have practical experience that whenever you stood to fight with them and began to shower your arrows on them, they immediately fled in all directions just to save their lives. Many of the demigods were unable to fight with you, and they immediately surrendered themselves unto you by loosening their turbans and tufts of their hair on their heads. With folded hands they begged to you to spare them, and said, My lord, we are all afraid of your strength. Please release us from this dangerous fight. We have also seen many times that you would never kill such surrendered fighters, when they were all fearful, their bows, arrows, and chariots broken, forgetful of their military activities, and unable to fight with you. So actually, we have nothing to fear from those demigods. They are very proud of being great fighters in peacetime outside the warfield, but actually they cannot show any talent or military power on the warfield. Although Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma are always ready to help the demigods, headed by Indra, we have no reason to be afraid of them. As far as Lord Vishnu is concerned, he has already hidden himself within the hearts of all living entities, and he cannot come out. As far as Lord Shiva is concerned, he has renounced all activities. He has already entered into the forest. And Lord Brahma, he is always engaged in different types of austerities and meditation. And what to speak of Indra? He is a straw in comparison with your strength. Therefore, we have nothing to fear from any of these demigods. But we must not neglect them, for the demigods are our determined enemies. We must be careful to protect ourselves, to root them out from their very existence. We should just engage ourselves in your service and be always ready for your command.
Yeah. Thank you for reading again. So here in this paragraph, we can really see the nature of Kamsa and his associates. Yeah. Did anything stand out for the readers in this section?
Yeah, something really stood out for me is like what sort of association you take and where you take the guidance from. So if you're not taking guidance from the right people, you could be born in a good family, Brahmanic family and everything. But if you start losing the good association of good people, this is what becomes, like you see, and then you take guidance of people you are with. So you become like people you are with. So sometimes you can find that children born in really good families, and then when they go to uni or college or something, they start taking association in the drugs and alcohol and everything, and they lose the character of the culture which was given to them by their families. So it's quite important that association where in this instance, a while ago, he was talking to Devaki about all this philosophy, and then when he went back to his palace, he started talking to all his ministers and all the other demoniac natured demons, and he started believing what they were saying. How he changed from one bit coming out of the association of Devki and coming to the association of this demon-like demons, and how he started believing in them, that uh, he shouldn't be afraid of Vishnu, Shiva, or Brahma or Indra, and he is superior to them.
Yeah. Yeah, so many nice points you've reflected there. Yeah, it's interesting how like one day he was very like benevolent and submissive and friendly, and the very next day he just changed again. So this is like very common with an atheistic nature, that you kind of do what suits you, you know. It's unsteady, an unsteady mind. Whereas like devotees, we try to practice the steadiness of mind and practice equality, treating everyone equally, servant of Krishna. Yeah. Whereas this, if the mentality is that you know, I'm the center of attention, then you treat everyone according to how you relate to them or what's pleasing to you. So yeah, these are some of the things which I brought out. I can see Pretty has a hand raised. Do you want to add something?
Yes, I did. Was he aware that it was Lord Vishnu who was going to take birth to kill him, or was it just like some supreme personality or a demigod? I've forgotten.
Does anyone know the answer for that one? Anyone could guess from what we've read?
I only can remember that he was told Devki's 8th son was going to kill him, but I can't remember if they mentioned that he was going to be like Vishnu himself or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. As far as I remember, it wasn't mentioned that Vishnu would kill him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember that specifically. It was just mentioned the 8th child of Devaki.
Okay.
But at the same time, he had this natural enmity towards Vishnu because of his previous life. Yeah?
Okay.
So that brings up an interesting point, because the mentality that we have in this lifetime is just continuing from a previous lifetime. Yeah. So this point is kind of brought out. Actually, there was studies done about previous lives by this scientist. He took it quite objectively. Ian Stevenson. You can look him up on the internet. Professor Ian Stevenson, I think his name was, and he did all these past life studies of small children who could remember their previous lives. They could remember their parents in their last life, and their partners or where they lived. Some of the children, they could even remember the language which they learned in the previous life. It was quite extraordinary. So they found so many case studies like this, and he had a team who went around the world to verify these findings. They did it in quite a scientific and objective way. In many cases, obviously there might have been some hoaxes as well, but in many cases they found that the children, when they took them to the place of their previous life, they could point out, like, this is where I died, or my bedroom was over in this corner, and the people who were living in the house, who knew the relative in the previous life, they could verify, yeah, it's amazing, this child, he's never been to this country before, or he's never been to this place before, and he can remember where he died or where he lived or which room he had, and his particular habits. So we can understand from this, and also the pastime here, that the impressions of the mind go on from life to life. And so Krishna consciousness is about making new impressions, or by remembering, actually not new impressions, but remembering our relationship with Krishna, which is covered over by all these material impressions, all these layers and layers of material memories and conceptions. So we're trying, in Krishna consciousness, we're trying to clear away Chaito Darpana Marjanam, trying to clear away all of these misconceptions and come back to our original consciousness of our relationship with Krishna. So Kamsa also has that relationship with Krishna, the original relationship with Krishna. But he's acting inimically because he's forgotten that. He's an enemy of Vishnu. He's like a sworn enemy of Vishnu.
Okay.
It's okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Sorry, elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, like this other, no, that's good. The Mataji before me, she'd said something about his advisors were, they weren't very learned. So one thing that they didn't know about, one thing they mentioned here about Vishnu is that he's only in the hearts of all living entities, not knowing that he could actually come as a personal form, or that he does exist as a personal form and not just as a Paratma.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is mentioned in there as well. Yeah. So that's at the beginning of the paragraph.
that
Yeah.
somewhere over halfway, because it kind of, from what we know about this philosophy, is that he's not just there as Paratma, but also like the personal form. So it kind of like puts those two together, where he says, where they say they're not learned, and then they also just say this about Vishnu.
Yeah, that's a nice point. Yeah, so he doesn't realize that the Supreme Lord is both Paramatma and Bhagavan. Yeah, he's in everyone's heart, and at the same time, he's outside of this creation as well. Yeah. And this is another point that I picked up on this section, was how it seems like he accepts two levels of demigods. He accepts like there's Indra and all of the demigods who control the universe, but then even above them there is Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma, who are like much higher up, So he doesn't have any. I think he's more like his associates, his friends. They're more inimical with the demigods. They're not so concerned with Vishnu, Shiva, and Lord Brahma as much, you see. But they want to kind of maintain that enmity with the demigods, all the servants of Vishnu.
Okay, so as advisors, they can't. They're still attached to so much. So in that way, they're not very good advisors, because they're thinking about their benefit from this rather than Gunza's benefit.
Yeah, I guess that's another point. Yeah, because they're really like inflating his ego. You're such a great fighter, even though you're human, you can fight the demigods. Like, you're so powerful, even Indra's scared of you, because they themselves are not as powerful as him. So if they side with him, then they can continue with their evil activities and still be protected by him. So they're kind of egging him on, as you say. They're encouraging him. Yeah. Okay, if you could.
Yes, thank you.
10 minutes left. Yeah, maybe we could finish this section then. If we could read maybe the next paragraph, please.
The demons continue to say, if there is some disease in the body which is neglected, it worsens and becomes incurable. Similarly, when one is not careful about restraining the senses and lets them loose, it's then very difficult to control them. Therefore, we must now be very careful of the demigods before they get too strong to be subdued. The fountain of the strength of the demigods is Lord Vishnu, because the ultimate goal of all religious principles is to satisfy him. The Vedic injunctions, the brahmanas, the cows, austerities, sacrifices, performances of charity, and distribution of wealth are all for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. So let us immediately begin by killing all the brahmanas who were in charge of the Vedic knowledge, along with the great sages who were in charge of sacrificial ritualistic performances. Let us kill all the cows, which are the source of butter, which is so necessary for performing sacrifices. Please give us your permission to kill all these creatures. Actually, the limbs of the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu are the brahmanas, the cows, Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, sense, and mind control, faithfulness, charity, tolerance, and performance of sacrifices. Lord Vishnu is situated in everyone's heart and is the leader of all demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Therefore, we think that to persecute the great sages and brahmanas is to kill Lord Vishnu. Thus being advised by his demoniac ministers, Kamsa, who was from the very beginning the greatest rascal, decided to persecute all the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, being entrapped by the shackles of all-devouring eternal time. He ordered the demons to harass all kinds of saintly persons, and then he entered his house. Adherents of Kamsa were all influenced by the mode of passion, as well as illusioned by the mode of ignorance, and their only business was to create enmity with saintly persons. Such activities can only reduce one's duration of life. The demons accelerated the process and invited their deaths as soon as possible. The result of persecuting saintly persons is not ultimately untimely death. The act is so offensive that the perpetrator also gradually loses his beauty, his fame, and his religious principles, and thus his promotion to higher planets is checked. Driven by various kinds of mental concoctions, the demons diminish all an offense at the lotus feet of the devotees and brahmanas is a greater offense than that committed at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A civilization that commits such sinful activities generally loses all faith in the Supreme Lord, and such a godless civilization becomes the source of all calamities in human society. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Parvat of the 4th chapter of Krishna. Kamsa begins his persecutions.
Okay, any comments or reflections on this section? So it comes, the demons begin with an analogy, don't they? About disease, that if you neglect a disease, then it becomes worse and incurable. Yeah. So it's said sometimes that the body of society, the different positions in society are like the body of Vishnu. That you have like the intellectuals who are like the head of society. You have the the administrators and the leaders who are like the strong arms. Then you have the business and the commerce and production. It's like the belly of human society, and the legs are the workers. So they're saying that they're comparing this society to be like a disease. They're saying that, and they're comparing that disease to be Vishnu actually. Huh? So that's not actually the case, because Vishnu, he's the soul of the society. He's actually the center of society. So they've kind of misunderstood. That's what I've taken from this. And so because of that, because their kind of foundation is wrong, their kind of foundational understanding is wrong of the position of Vishnu or Krishna, then everything that all the knowledge which they build upon that will also be wrong. Yeah. So then they conclude that they should kill all of the brahmanas and the cows and do all of these like disgusting things, all of these horrible things. And that way they can have a long and enjoyable life. That's what they conclude. But the exact opposite is true. Yeah. That offenses to the devotees and those who are dear to Krishna is the cause of all miseries. Yeah, is the cause of all destruction. Yeah. Does anyone else have any final comments or questions?
I have a question, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Guns. How was it that he was so powerful? Like the demigods were scared of him. How did that come about? What was his superpower?
What was his secret?
Yeah, like did he have a boon or something, like most demons and rakshasas end up getting?
Yeah, and actually, it's a good question. You see this in many of the pastimes, here in the pastimes of Krishna, in the pastimes of Lord Ram. So even Ravana was super powerful, right? So Kamsa is actually a devotee of Lord Shiva, which is why he was a little bit afraid when he saw Durga Devi. Similarly, Ravan, he was a devotee of Lord Brahma. And by performing austerities to the demigods, they become very powerful. Yeah. So generally, they don't have enmity with Lord Shiva, with Lord Brahma, or they, as you say, the Ishtadev. They don't have enmity with them. And the demigods, they're obliged to give blessings, material blessings. They're basically, they're just governors of the universe. So if you perform the right austerities, then they'll give you the blessing. So he became very powerful, as he says here, because controlling senses. So it's not that only religion is only for those who want to be God conscious, who want to be lovers of God. People follow religious processes because they themselves want to be God. It's not unheard of, that let me give you this mantra and you'll become God, or let me, teach you this type of austerity and you'll become rich and famous, or that's kind of what common religion is about these days. So they actually followed principles of religion, but those principles of religion didn't change their heart. They didn't have a change of heart. They didn't want to surrender to Krishna, because that's the essence of all religion. Krishna says the essence of the Bhagavad Gita is Sarva Dharmam Prityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. That Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja, that only surrender to me. Mam Ekam, only me. Sharanam Vraja. And then you will go to me and he will relieve you from all sins. So they didn't understand the purpose of all religions, and they didn't understand the purpose of actually all these sacrifices, all these various charities and things you can do. They thought that the purpose of all those things was to be in a good position themselves. And so this is how the demons, they become very powerful. So they follow religious principles, but they do it for a selfish motive rather than a selfless motive. And that's what makes all the difference. Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you for your question. Okay, so we've reached time now. So I don't know if there are anyone who has any final thoughts or questions. Otherwise, we could end here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
One last point, Krishna can always forget offenses at his lotus feet for him, but if his offense is made to his devotee or brahmana, he will never forget.
Yeah.
Punish.
That's an amazing point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's incredible. Yeah. So Krishna, he doesn't mind anyone offending him, because his position doesn't change. He's always the Supreme Lord, no matter what you do. Huh? But he doesn't like anyone knocking down his devotees. He really doesn't like that. Can anyone think of any examples of that? What happens to the offenders of the Vaishnavas? There's a lot of stories.
Yeah, there's one example about Amrish, King Amrish and Durvasa. Durvasa was a Brahmana, and he was a really good austere Brahman, but I'll just cut it into short. He went to Amrish's house, and Amrish was fasting for like so many days, and it was Ekadasi, and Durvasa came there, and he was going to offer Durvasa some prashadam. Durvasa decided to go and have a bath in the Ganges. So years ago, like, when you did Ekadasi, there was certain time you had to break the fast. So he was in a dual thing. Shall I break my fast, or shall I wait for Durvasa? Because he's like a Brahman, so I cannot eat before offering him some prashadam, because he's come to my house. So in the end, he gets some guidance, and he just takes a drop of water. So when Durvasa comes to him, he was very angry, and he creates a demon. He puts down a hair, pulls a hair, and a demon is created. And this demon is trying to go to Amrish and try to kill him. But basically, Krishna, who's Amrish is like a bhakta, a devotee, rather than a yogi, and Durvasa was a yogi, so, and a Brahman. So Krishna sends a Sudarshan, which runs around Durvasa. So Durvasa goes to Shiva, he goes to Brahma, and then he goes everywhere. He's running around, and the Sudarshan is just like running behind him to kill him. But there is no solution, because everybody is saying, I can't do anything, because this is Vishnu's Sudarshan, so you have to go to him. So nothing, Shiva could not do anything, Lord Brahma could not do, Lord Shiva could not do anything. So he goes to Vishnu, and Vishnu goes to Durvasa that, I am in my heart is with my devotees, and I am bound by my devotees' love. So I cannot do anything. I cannot pull the Sudarshan. So you have to go to Amrish, because you have offended my devotee. So you have to ask forgiveness from Amrish. And if he forgives you, that's the only solution for this. I cannot do anything, because I am bound by by the love of my devotees. So basically, he goes back to Amrish, but being such a good devotee and bhakta, his heart is so pure. Amrish's heart is so pure and gentle. He fasted for a whole year and was waiting for Durvasa. He didn't take the offense himself, because he was such a pure devotee. Even then, Durvasa comes to him and asks for forgiveness, and that's when he realizes that bhakti is more powerful than yoga. So you see, if you are a pure bhakta, you're more power. Well, not in a sense of like, but you're more near to Krishna as a bhakta than a yogi, which is said in Gita as well somewhere, that Krishna is more the bhaktas. Anybody who is in bhakti yoga are more dearer, who are pure bhaktas are more dearer to Krishna than yogis. So this is a good example of offense, and how Krishna is explaining that his bhakta are more dear to him. He's bound by the love of his devotees.
Yeah, thank you, Mom. Very nice explanation. Yeah, so here's a perfect example in the pastime of Durvasa and Ambarish in the Srimad Bhagavatam of how Krishna is conquered by his devotees, isn't it? Srila Prabhupada even says in one place, don't try to become God, try to become better than God. If you become the devotee of God, if you become pure devotee, then even God can't stop someone like this, the offender has to come to you and apologize. So that was the case. Okay, So a little bit over time. It was very nice this week's session. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I look forward to reading the next chapter with you all next week as well. So wish you all the best for the week ahead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thanks very much.
Just want to
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Just want to welcome Nita, who's just joined our Nita. She's my cousin, so she's joined my cousin's daughter, so she's joined us this week.
Yes, thank you, Nita. Hare Krishna. Welcome to
Hare
the
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Have a lovely week.
Hare
Hare
Krishna. Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you.
Hare
Bye.
Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.